We are taught, right from a very young age, that a woman's egg supply is entirely fixed from birth. Like, it's just a static vault of genetic material. But for men, the entire male reproductive supply is regenerated from scratch every 72 to 90 days. Welcome to the deep dive.
Yeah, that 90-day window is, it is fundamentally a biological game changer.
Yeah.
It means that the lifestyle choices, the nutritional habits, and the clinical treatments a man pursues today, they are actively dictating the health of the genetic material that will be used in conception just one season from now.
Right.
It is a completely dynamic, real-time responsive system.
And that fact alone, it completely shifts how we need to think about fertility.
Yeah.
Because when we talk about a couple trying to conceive, there was almost always like this glaring spotlight pointed in one specific direction.
The woman.
Exactly, the woman. Her hormones, her cycle, her biological clock. It's like watching a high-stakes tennis match, but the entire crowd and all the referees are only staring at one half of the court.
Which creates an incredibly asymmetrical conversation. And more importantly, it ignores the basic mathematical reality of human reproduction, which is, at its core, a 50-50 equation.
Right, which brings us to our mission for you today. We are taking a stack of clinical insights and research from the Berkley Center for Reproductive Wellness, and we are redirecting that spotlight to the often ignored half of the fertility equation.
Male sperm quality.
Yes. Because the tragic irony pointed out in our source materials is that despite being responsible for roughly half of all infertility cases, men are frequently undertested or, given a clean bill of health when there's actually a massive underlying issue.
We see this constantly in the clinical literature. Men are given a basic screening, told everything is fine, and then the diagnostic burden falls right back onto the female partner.
Which is just wild.
It is. But today, we are looking at the exact biological mechanisms, the clinical case studies, and the peer-reviewed science that show how profoundly responsive this 90-day regeneration cycle really is.
Consider this dive your shortcut to understanding how to take back control of male reproductive health using integrative approaches like acupuncture and targeted herbal medicine. Okay, let's unpack this. Because before we can talk about fixing a problem within that 90-day window, we need to understand what exactly we are trying to fix.
Right. What defines good sperm and how do clinics actually measure it?
Exactly. And as I was reading through the source materials, a specific visual popped into my head. Think of sperm like a massive fleet of delivery trucks trying to make a highly coordinated, incredibly critical cross-country drop-off.
I like that. Complex logistical operation. It's a very apt analogy because it highlights that multiple independent systems have to work perfectly in sequence.
Right. So pillar number one of standard testing is count. This is simply the total number of trucks in your fleet.
Just raw volume.
Yeah. According to the standard semen analysis, you need a minimum of 16 million sperm per milliliter to even have a reasonable chance at a successful delivery.
And if you are below that, the medical term is oligospermia. Basically, you just don't have enough trucks on the road to guarantee even one gets through the incredibly harsh terrain of the female reproductive tract.
But simply having 16 million delivery trucks doesn't matter if they're just sitting idle in a parking lot somewhere.
Right. They require an engine, which brings us to pillar number 2, motility.
Meaning they actually have to actively swim. It's not just a passive fluid current carrying them along.
Oh, no, they have to swim vigorously and with purpose. Motility describes the forward progression of the sperm. They have to navigate through the cervix, swim up into the uterus, and travel deep into the fallopian tubes to reach the egg.
That's a long journey.
It is. If they lack that forward drive, a condition known as asthenospermia, they aren't going to make the journey, no matter how high your initial count was.
Okay, so let's say you have millions of sperm, and they are swimming furiously. That still doesn't guarantee success if they aren't physically built to penetrate the egg.
Which brings us to their aerodynamics.
Right. Pillar number 3, morphology. Normal sperm have a very specific, streamlined design. You need a perfectly oval head and a long, straight tail.
And if they are abnormally shaped, which is called teratospermia, they are going to have a terrible time trying to break through the outer shell of the egg.
Now, the grading for this in the clinic absolutely blew my mind. It's called the Kruger strict criteria, and a quote-unquote normal passing result requires just 4% of the sperm to have normal forms. Wait, does that mean 96% of human sperm are just genetically allowed to be funny-looking? And doctors consider that a win?
It sounds completely counterintuitive, doesn't it?
How would you like?
But human reproduction is actually incredibly messy and biologically inefficient compared to many other mammals.
Hmm.
Human sperm production prioritizes sheer volume over individual perfection.
It was a numbers game.
Exactly. The body produces tens of millions of sperm on the assumption that the vast majority will be defective. They will have two heads, coiled tails, or, poor aerodynamics. The female reproductive tract acts as a brutal obstacle course designed to filter out that 96%. So yes, as long as 4% are perfectly built, you pass the morphology test.
That is wild. But here is the massive blind spot that our sources point out. For decades, that was the end of the standard semen analysis.
Just those three.
Yeah, cant, motility, morphology. Millions of trucks, great engines, perfect aerodynamics. They arrive at the destination right on time. But when you open the back of the truck to deliver the goods, the cargo is completely smashed to pieces.
What's fascinating here is that this missing fourth pillar, the cargo, is arguably the most critical element of the entire operation.
Because the cargo is the DNA, right?
Precisely. That cargo is the genetic material, the DNA, packed inside the head of the sperm. The standard microscopic analysis we just talked about only looks at the outside of the truck. It cannot see inside.
So how do you look inside?
To measure the structural integrity of the genetic blueprint, you need a specific test called the DNA Fragmentation Index, or DFI.
And the Berkley Center notes that if this DNA fragmentation is above 15 to 25%, depending on the specific lab's threshold, the consequences are devastating.
Truly devastating.
It leads to fertilization failure, poor embryo development, recurrent miscarriage, and repeated failed IVF cycles. And a standard analysis doesn't even look for it.
It is entirely omitted from baseline testing. And this is where we have to discuss why that genetic cargo gets smashed in the first place.
Right, what's breaking it?
The primary culprit across the board is oxidative stress. I like to describe oxidative stress as biological rust.
Biological rust. How does that actually damage the DNA?
Think about what rust does to metal. It degrades the structural integrity until the metal becomes brittle and snaps.
Okay, I can picture that.
At a cellular level, oxidative stress happens when unstable molecules called free radicals roam around your body looking for electrons to steal. They steal those electrons from the outer membranes of your cells.
And if they get into the sperm?
If they get inside the sperm head, they literally steal electrons from the structural backbone of the DNA. The genetic strands become brittle and they physically break. That is DNA fragmentation.
Wow. And the sources point out that this quote-unquote rust is driven by things we encounter every day, like smoking, poor diet, environmental toxins, psychological stress, advanced age, and heat exposure.
Yes, heat is a huge factor.
I was reading the list of things that cause heat damage, and I totally understand hot tubs, tight clothing, or keeping a hot laptop directly on your lap. But it also mentions something called a varicocele. What exactly is that?
A varicocele is essentially a cluster of enlarged varicose veins inside the scrotum.
Oh.
The testes are located outside the main cavity of the human body for a very specific evolutionary reason. They need to be kept about 2 degrees cooler than your core body temperature to manufacture healthy sperm.
So what does the varicocele do?
It causes blood to pool in that area, acting like a radiator that constantly heats the testes. When you increase that localized heat, you trigger a massive wave of that biological rust and you fragment the DNA.
Okay, so this brings us to a huge practical question. If the blueprint of the sperm is being damaged by this oxidative rust-like, if a guy is dealing with a stressful lifestyle or a varicocele, how exactly do we fix the cargo?
Right.
The Berkley Center specializes in integrative medicine, pointing heavily to acupuncture and customized herbal medicine. But I have to push back here on behalf of our listeners. If I have high oxidative stress, literally breaking the DNA in my reproductive organs, how exactly does sticking tiny, sterile needles into my arms or legs fix my sperm?
It is the most common and, frankly, most valid skepticism patients bring into the clinic.
I mean, it sounds like a stretch.
It does, but to understand it, we have to strip away the idea of acupuncture as mystical energy work and look strictly at the physiological mechanics.
Okay, mechanics. I'm listening.
Acupuncture is an intense mechanical intervention. When those fine needles are placed at highly specific neurological nodes, they trigger a cascade of measurable biological responses.
Break that cascade down for me. What is actually happening under the hood?
Let's look at 3 specific mechanisms. First, local vasodilation.
Meaning widening of blood vessels.
Yes. The needles stimulate the nervous system to release vasodilators. By actively increasing microcirculation to the pelvic region and testes, you are physically flushing out that stagnant, rust-filled oxidative environment.
And flooding it with what?
Fresh oxygen and nutrients. You are fundamentally changing the factory conditions where the sperm are produced.
Okay, improve logistics and supply lines. That makes sense. What is the second mechanism?
It regulates what endocrinologists call the HPG axis,
Which stands for?
the hypothalamic pituitary gonadal axis. Think of the hypothalamus in your brain as the master thermostat for your entire hormonal system.
Right.
It sends a signal to the pituitary gland, which then sends a signal down to the gonads, the testes, telling them to produce testosterone and manufacture sperm.
Okay, simple enough.
But when you are under chronic stress, your body pumps out a hormone called cortisol. Cortisol actively blocks the thermostat's signal. Your brain thinks you are in a survival situation, so it shuts down the factory floor to conserve energy.
Oh, wow. So it's deprioritizing reproduction because you're basically in fight or flight mode.
Precisely. Clinical studies show that acupuncture physically lowers serum cortisol levels in the bloodstream. By removing that cortisol blockage, you allow the HPG axis to communicate clearly again, restoring the make more testosterone signal.
That's fascinating.
And the third mechanism is that this improved circulation helps regulate localized testicular temperature, countering the heat damage from things like varicosities.
Okay, the mechanics of the needles make physiological sense. It's about optimizing the internal factory conditions, lowering stress hormones, and cooling the equipment for that 90-day production run. But what about the herbs? The source talks about herbal medicine as a complementary tool, and I assume we aren't just talking about like a generic multivitamin off the grocery store shelf.
Not at all. If we connect this to the bigger picture, both acupuncture and herbal medicine are targeting the exact same root cause, reducing oxidative stress. But the Berkley Center utilizes a highly customized clinical approach.
Customize how?
They draw on classical botanical medicine, but formulate it based on a careful intake of your specific biochemical needs.
So the herbs are acting as targeted antioxidants.
Yes, they are active biochemical compounds that flood the system with electrons, essentially neutralizing those free radicals before they can rust the DNA.
Right, because the free radicals are stealing electrons.
Exactly. The goal is to aggressively clean up the internal environment. Because remember that 90-day window? As the old, highly fragmented sperm die off, the new sperm being manufactured over the next season are growing in a pristine, low-rust environment.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Theory and biological pathways are great, but for you listening, you need to know if this actually translates to real-world results.
Right.
How does this 90-day sperm regeneration cycle play out in real, messy human life? The Berkley Center provided a couple of case studies, and I want you to put yourself in the shoes of these patients. Listen to these two drastically different scenarios and ask yourself what stands out to you about conventional versus integrative treatments.
Let's examine the first case. David is a 38-year-old man. He and his wife came to the clinic after enduring 2 failed IVF cycles.
2 failed rounds?
Yes. If you or anyone you know has been through IVF, you understand the immense physical toll the hormone injections take on the female partner, not to mention the emotional heartbreak and the staggering financial cost.
And here's the kicker. According to his standard semen analysis, David was told he was completely fine. He had a normal count and normal motility. His delivery trucks looked perfect on the outside.
But his conventional reproductive endocrinologist had never ordered a DNA fragmentation test. The Berkley Center ran the DFI panel, and David's fragmentation came back at 42%.
42%. Earlier you mentioned the severe danger zone starts at 15 to 25%.
42% is catastrophic for embryo development. His sperm's genetic cargo was severely compromised, which perfectly explains why the pristine IVF embryos kept failing to develop.
So what do they do?
Well, rather than rushing into a third IVF cycle blind, they put his reproductive system through an intensive boot camp for 1 full sperm regeneration cycle.
3 months.
Exactly. 3 months of twice-weekly acupuncture, a customized herbal formula specifically engineered to neutralize oxidative stress, targeted dietary changes, and clinical-grade antioxidant supplements.
And the result at the end of those 90 days, David's DFI plummeted from that disastrous 42% all the way down to 17%. He was back in the normal, healthy range.
A huge drop.
His wife underwent a third IVF cycle. They transferred 3 high-quality blastocysts, and the case study notes she is now 22 weeks pregnant with their first child. They achieved success simply by cleaning up the cargo.
It is a powerful illustration of why accepting a basic semen analysis as the final word is a massive clinical mistake.
Okay, now let's look at the second case, which is a totally different scenario. Marcus, 34 years old. He and his partner had been trying to conceive naturally for 18 months.
It's a long time to be trying.
Imagine sitting in that sterile doctor's office, month after month, feeling completely powerless. Unlike David, Marcus's standard metrics were visibly terrible. His count was 8 million per milliliter. Remember, the bare minimum for natural conception is 16 million.
Right.
And his motility, the forward progression, was only 28%.
He is operating with half the necessary fleet, and the engines in the trucks he does have are failing.
And his conventional reproductive urologist offered absolutely zero proactive treatment to fix the sperm. They just looked at the numbers and said, proceed directly to IVF with ICSI.
Which, for context, ICSI stands for intracytoplasmic sperm injection.
What exactly is that?
It is a procedure where an embryologist manually selects a single sperm and forcefully injects it directly into the center of the egg using a microscopic needle.
Which completely bypasses the biological problem rather than attempting to solve it.
Exactly.
Marcus didn't accept that as his only option. He opted for an integrative approach. He underwent 4 months of weekly acupuncture and took a personalized botanical formula designed to support cellular energy production and motility.
And the results were dramatic.
When he retested after that single season, his count had exploded from 8 million to 22 million. His motility nearly doubled, jumping from 28% to 48%. Both metrics were now well within the normal, healthy ranges.
And the most vital part of Marcus's outcome, he and his partner conceived naturally just 2 months later. No invasive IVF procedures, no ICSI needles required.
It's an amazing turnaround. But I want to make a really important distinction here that the sources emphasize. The Berkley Center isn't anti-IVF.
Not at all.
They are not telling patients to abandon modern medicine. They integrate these Eastern treatments with conventional medicine. They work collaboratively with your reproductive endocrinologist when you are pursuing IUI or IVF. They even utilize modern technological interventions like low-level light therapy or LLLT right alongside the acupuncture.
Yes, LLLT is a fantastic example of modern photobiomodulation.
Break that down for us. What is photobiomodulation and how does light therapy help sperm?
It involves using specific wavelengths of red and near-infrared light applied directly to the scrotal area.
Yeah.
The photons of light penetrate the skin and are absorbed by the mitochondria, the powerhouses, inside the cells of the testes and the sperm themselves. This light stimulation forces the mitochondria to produce more ATP, which is raw cellular energy.
So you are literally beaming energy into the engines of the sperm so they can swim faster.
That is exactly what is happening at a microscopic level. It gives them the ATP they need for vigorous motility, and emerging clinical evidence shows it also helps protect the DNA integrity from fragmentation. It is the purest definition of integrative medicine, utilizing every proven tool available, whether it is an ancient botanical or a modern laser, to optimize the internal environment.
So what does this all mean? We have ancient medicine and modern case studies, but where are the scientific receipts? Like, are David and Marcus just lucky statistical outliers, or is this 90-day protocol rigorously backed by peer-reviewed science?
This raises an important question, and frankly, it is the exact question every patient should be asking their practitioner. You should never just take a clinic's anecdotal word for it.
Right, show me the data.
Exactly. Our source material provides a robust foundation of peer-reviewed literature to back up every mechanism we've discussed. Let's examine the clinical acupuncture data first.
Let's hear it.
A landmark 2005 study by Picken and colleagues, published in Fertility and Sterility, which is one of the premier journals in the field, looked specifically at men suffering from severe deficits across the board: low count, poor motility, and highly abnormal morphology.
So guys in really tough spots.
Yes. Following a structured acupuncture protocol, they found statistically significant improvements in both the forward motility and the structural morphology.
The engines got stronger and the aerodynamics normalized?
Yes. But in the scientific community, critics often argue that alternative medicine results are just the placebo effect.
Sure.
Which makes a 2009 study by Dieterle incredibly compelling. This was a prospective, randomized, placebo-controlled trial.
Wait, how do you do a placebo control with acupuncture? The patient clearly knows if they're being poked with a needle or not.
It is a massive challenge in study design. They use what is called a sham control. The control group does receive real needle insertions, but the practitioner deliberately avoids the established therapeutic neurological pathways.
Oh, so they put them in the wrong spots.
Exactly, placing the needles in neutral, non-active spots on the body. It ensures the psychological experience of receiving treatment is identical.
That's clever. And the results?
Dieterle found statistically significant measurable improvements in sperm motility exclusively in the group receiving the true targeted acupuncture versus the sham control. The placebo effect was ruled out.
That is a massive validation of the specific mechanics you talked about earlier. Okay, what about the herbal side of things? Because to someone used to taking a highly synthesized prescription pill, a custom botanical formula can sound a bit vague. Are these herbs actually doing measurable work?
The pharmacological impact of specific botanical compounds on cellular function is deeply documented. Take astragalus, for instance, which is a staple root in traditional Chinese medicine. A 2002 study by Zhang isolated astragalus and applied it to sperm, both in vitro, meaning directly in a petri dish, and in vivo inside the body.
And what happened in the petri dish?
It significantly increased sperm motility. The mechanism they observed is that astragalus aggressively protects the cellular membrane of the sperm from lipid peroxidation.
It's just a fancy way of saying.
Which is a fancy way of saying it acts as an intense shield against that biological rust we keep talking about. It protects the engine so it can keep running.
That is incredible. It is not a vague wellness tonic. It is a measurable biochemical shield.
Exactly. Then you have a 1996 trial by Salvati examining Panax ginseng supplementation. They tracked the hormonal pathways and found that ginseng actively stimulates the pituitary gland to release more luteinizing hormone, or LH.
And LH does what?
That LH travels to the testes and commands them to produce more testosterone, leading to documented improvements in overall sperm count and motility. And a 2001 study by Gonzalez linked maca root supplementation to deeply improved sperm concentration.
So the plants are literally acting as chemical messengers, instructing the brain's thermostat to turn up production.
Precisely. But perhaps the most crucial scientific receipts are the ones validating the hidden danger of DNA fragmentation. A massive 10-year retrospective analysis published by Moskovtsev in 2009 definitively associated high DFI with recurrent pregnancy loss and repeated failed IVF cycles.
10 years of data, that's huge.
And in 2017, Steves published a pivotal paper heavily advocating for routine DFI testing for all men, concluding that antioxidant-based interventions are the most vital tool we have to manage it.
Which brings everything full circle. The conventional scientific community acknowledges that high DNA fragmentation guarantees failure. They acknowledge that fighting oxidative stress with targeted antioxidants is the proven way to fix it.
Right.
And that is exactly the physiological pathway that the acupuncture, the photobiomodulation, and the custom herbs are executing.
It all connects flawlessly. The modern microscopic research entirely validates the traditional, ancient methodologies. They are simply two different languages, Eastern and Western, describing the exact same biological reality.
Wow. We have covered a massive amount of clinical ground today. Let's synthesize the big aha moments for you, the listener, so you can walk away from this deep dive armed with actionable knowledge.
Sounds good.
Number 1. Male fertility is 50% of the reproductive equation. If you are struggling to conceive, you cannot allow the clinical spotlight to remain entirely on the female partner. You have to demand equal scrutiny. Number 2. A standard semen analysis is not enough. You can have millions of perfect-looking delivery trucks swimming at top speed, but if you don't specifically test the DNA fragmentation, you have no idea if the genetic cargo inside is rusting and smashed. You must ask your doctor for a DFI test.
And number 3, which I believe is the most hopeful and empowering takeaway of all. The male reproductive system regenerates every 72 to 90 days. You are never permanently locked into your current metrics. By utilizing a customized, integrative approach, combining the mechanical blood flow benefits of acupuncture, tailored botanical antioxidants, modern light therapy, and lifestyle shifts, you possess the physiological ability to completely rewrite your reproductive health in a single season.
To fundamentally change your genetic legacy in just 3 months. It's incredible. Now, before we sign off today, I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over, something that really struck a chord with me as we were piecing all this research together.
We open this discussion by noting that a woman's egg supply is largely fixed from birth. Historically, society, and even the medical establishment has used that biological fact to place an immense, static, and often unfair pressure entirely on women. The anxiety of the ticking biological clock.
Yeah, we hear about it constantly.
But if male sperm is entirely regenerating, adapting, and responding to its environment every 72 to 90 days, doesn't that mean men actually hold a much more dynamic, real-time responsibility for the genetic health of future generations than society has ever acknowledged?
It completely shifts the paradigm of responsibility. It is not just about the genetics you were born with. It is about how you choose to live your life, how you manage your stress, and how you treat your body right now. today. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the standard narratives of your own health. Don't ever be afraid to advocate for deeper testing. And remember, your daily choices are literally building the delivery trucks of tomorrow. See you next time.